Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition, episode 3 of LFGM Mets podcast. Cole and Matt coming to you live. Matt, how you doing, man? Been a quiet week with the Metsies.
Quiet week in baseball in general. I keep saying things got to heat up, but I'm just not sure.
I think February is going to be a wild month with free agency, but we'll see. I don't know. Last year was weird too. People signed it like the very last second. Um, we're going to spend today's episode talking a lot about because not much has happened in the free agency world. So we'll spend a lot about what we think this team still needs, some holes that could possibly still be filled. Right now, if you look on Sport Track, the projected payroll for the Mets is $184.7 million. That means they've got 25.3 left to play with until they hit that luxury tax. So, Matt, if you're Steve Cohen, if you're Sandy Alderson, if you're Jared Porter, what do? You've got roughly $25 million to play with. So here you go. Have at it. GM Matt.
All right, so this is what's gonna get me hired here. I just looking at what some journalists have said with the Mets and everything. It looks like that we will be over the luxury tax in 2022. So back-to-back years of being over the luxury tax, not really ideal, especially when you talk about it's going to set you up for some, because then if you're in year 3, I believe you have to pay half your taxes, or your taxes are half of that payroll, which is insane, right?
That's insane. That's what happened with the Red Sox, right? That's why they had to get rid of Mookie Betts.
That's why, that's why, and they're finally good now, but so it can, turn over within a year's time fairly quickly, but a year ago they had to get rid of him. You know what I mean? Like, so
Mhm.
I don't want us to ever be in that position, especially with homegrown talent, of doing that. So my top 3 priorities are this. I would, number 1, sign Francisco Lindor to an extension. That's for me, that's the number 1 priority, because I can't get past the fact that he's just technically supposed to be here for a year with all that we traded.
Exactly.
I want to get that
Like
done.
we've talked about that a little bit with Lindor. Like that's my number one too. You don't trade for a guy like this for 1 year and give up all of that in return. You have to sign him. You have to. He's number
Yeah.
1 for me as well.
Yep. And I think, and then number 2, and this is tough because I went back and forth with this, is I would sign a reliever, and then I would most likely go with Brad Hand, just determining what the numbers in years are going to look like. It sounds like 2 years, maybe between 8 and 11 million a year. I have no idea, but that's what I was thinking. So you're talking like 2 years, 16 to 20 million, whatever it is. That's fine. That's doable, right?
That puts you. So if you're thinking about this year, that gives you about 15 million left.
Yep.
on your before you hit the luxury tax.
Yeah, which probably would put us out of the running for George Springer. But the more
Absolutely.
I think about it, the more I am okay with it. Just him being 31 years old. If a 34-year-old George Springer, he's still going to be good. It's not to say he's not going to be good or anything, but if he's going to be the reason why, we have to sell off some of our homegrown talent eventually, I don't love that. So my number 3 priority is going to be signing Conforto to an extension.
Mm-hmm. So you're pretty much what you're evaluating here is you're saying you'd rather have Conforto long term than George Springer. Is what it comes down to. I think I think there's a way you can get them both. You have to be creative with it. I agree with you with Lindor 100%. I kind of go back and forth with Brad Hand. You're going to kill me for saying this, but I think you have to trust Edwin Diaz. I think you have to go. You got this guy on the payroll. This Familia contract's really killing us. It's eaten up a lot of the. I think it's like $10 or $11 million this year, and it's. I mean, if that's not there, It gives you a lot more room, a lot more wiggle room, especially to sign Brad Hand. I think I, part of me trusts Edwin Diaz. Part of me will never forget what we went through as Met fans with Edwin Diaz. I want to go into the season and trust him, and I think if you bring back Justin Wilson, I think you can get him for relatively cheap, $3-4 million. And I think that still allows you to go after George Springer and to sign Michael Conforto to an extension too. So I would be in the camp that says Lindor 1. I would put Conforto 2. I value him more than I ever will George Springer just because he's one of our own. And then 3, I would say George Springer and a reliever, and that reliever for me would be Justin Wilson. That's just how I feel right now.
So I don't even hate the Justin Wilson over Brad Hand thing. Obviously, you know, there's never going to be any trust between me and Edwin Diaz,
I know.
but you gotta get some kind of reliever and some kind of lefty
Mm-hmm.
reliever, right? So either one of those, I would say. I'm not necessarily, and that's it, really, right? Like just a lefty reliever. I'm not desperate for any kind of other pitcher. Like, I saw there's a lot of teams interested in Kirby Yates. I don't think we need a guy like that.
No.
Just because, we did get Trevor May. We do have some of these guys on here on our 40 man that I do believe in, even if they haven't been brought up yet, right? So.
Yep.
You have guys like, I think the guy from Tampa Bay, I'm trying to think of.
Was it Drew Smith?
Drew Smith. I
Yeah,
do
we
like
liked him a
him.
lot.
Yeah, and I think that there's some, because we have seen some of these guys before in short spurts that, you can make it work with a bullpen, right? And every year, the best bullpen, usually the Rays, but the best bullpen or even the top 3 bullpens, you look at their names and you're like, who the fuck are these guys? So
Right.
I think we always agree on that. You don't necessarily need a name, but even the guy that we got from the other guy that we got from Tampa, Mick Williams, I think he's someone that we
Yeah.
have to give a shot just
Yeah.
because, a lot of these guys, they're young and they've been starters their whole lives, and it's a complete different ball game, really, when
I
you're
mean,
talking about changing into a reliever.
there are some. We have a ton of guys you would say in like the minor league system that are going to be, I think, up and down with this bullpen all year. You mentioned one of them, Sam McWilliams, um, Corey Oswalt. I mean, he could be your long man. We've seen him, up and down sporadically throughout the
And
years.
Seth,
Um,
we
I
have
love
Seth
Drew
still.
Smith. Yeah, you still have Seth. Seth Lugo is going to be great at. I think he'll be a bullpen for the
Yeah.
whole year. I don't think they'll mess with him this year, especially in 162, which Manfred, said that it would be. So that's
Yeah.
exciting. I like Drew Smith. We'll see what he's doing. He's coming back off of um, he was injured. He was hurt last year, so we'll see. They just picked up Stephen Tarpley from Miami off of waivers. I like that move. I think it's high, low risk, high reward type thing. I remember him with the Yankees. He's got an absolute cannon of an arm. High strikeout guy, high walk guy. So you kind of know what you're getting into there. He's going to drive you absolutely crazy out of the bullpen if he walks the first batter, though. I can't stand that. And I
Yeah.
think one of the bigger names that the Mets have brought in this year would be Jerry Blevins. There's another guy. He was coming off of a really good, I thought, a really good year with the Braves, and then nobody wanted him in free agency, and he sat out a year pretty much. And I don't know if that was through the pandemic and kind of just he himself personally said I'm going to take the year off and then come back. But he's with the Mets now, and we love Jerry. We love Jerry.
Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'm almost fine, even if we don't sign a lefty, and especially if we don't sign Hand, especially if we can use that money towards something else, and we just bring Justin Wilson back. And like the biggest thing for me with bullpen, obviously the walks, right? And we do have guys like I
God,
think
it drives me
I
nuts.
think Sam, even Mick Williams, I think he had like a 1.5 whip, which is not great, but he's also he jumped from like low 90s to the Rays got him throwing like up to 96 last spring training.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you have a velocity jump like that, the ball is going to be all over the place until you figure it out. He could be a guy that easily figures that out and how to get that ball either if it's rising or whatever it is, and if he could start throwing strikes, then you got some really serious arms in there where you
Yeah,
don't
like remember
necessarily.
that guy we got from Baltimore? Um, Picked him up
Castro.
mid-year. Castro, yeah, he was. I did, all over the place at first, but it seemed like he settled down a little bit towards the end. He's got great stuff, man. Good movement. When he's controlling the ball, he could be lights out. He's another one of those like Edwin Diaz type, though. You never
Yeah,
know
I'm
what you
not.
get.
Castro, I saw that he was on the team still. Did you know that?
Yeah,
And I was just like, okay. Hopefully he's got options, because
he'll be up and down. Yeah.
and the cleats were so ugly.
Oh my God. And the hair coming out of the back of the
Dude,
hat. Hilarious. Hilarious.
but the cleats, it was Halloween every time he pitched. The cleats.
They were
We don't
bright
have
orange.
black in our uniforms.
You know who did not like those? Keith Hernandez.
Because he mentioned it
I
every
know. They were the
time. And it's like
Orioles cleats.
the first week it makes sense. You don't have cleats. Like, okay. After that, I don't know, man. I
I
don't know
know.
if you gotta
Get with it.
go buy your own Jumpmans or something, but like go buy some.
Buy your own
Go get
jump.
something. Because they were
You
Jumpman black and orange Halloween cleats.
you know
So
what was
bad.
an interesting pickup? This also happened this week was Jose Martinez. I mean, what do you think about that? That's a depth guy?
Yeah, I mean, not great in the outfield by any means. Can hit. I always liked them coming up with the Rays. The Rays seem to. I think they got a nice haul for him too. They just seem to know when, if a guy's
When it's
expendable
time.
and shipped
Yeah.
him to the Cardinals. He didn't do much with the Cardinals, but to me, he is a professional hitter. So
I think he started with the Cardinals, then went to the Rays. I think he ended up with the Cubs at the end.
he's been a little bit all over back and forth now, but
Yeah.
he could hit a bit. So
He's
it's
got
a
that
depth
long
move.
Cliff Floyd swing, man.
Yeah, but I don't think there's as many holes as we originally thought on this team. And even like with center field, if we don't get Springer, there's plenty of other guys out there. Even if we,
Everyone keeps talking about JBJ, Jackie Bradley Jr., and
yeah,
I don't
I
know
was
if
gonna bring him up.
I haven't seen any news reporter, any link of the Mets talking to him at all. So I think this is all just like fan speculation. Like, oh, if we don't get Springer, we'll obviously just get Jackie Bradley Jr. I don't see that. I don't think the more I love JBJ, I don't think that the Mets would go for him though. I think there's another guy out there who would be more intriguing.
Well, that's the thing too with like this. This is what makes, I think, for me, free agency so much more different than years past is that no one's really talking about any of these second or third tier guys. And
Yeah, the
there's,
big guy's
you
got to
know,
go.
yeah, and think of like George Springer, the top tier guy. There's only two teams in on him with the Mets and the Blue Jays, from what we
So
know. I
weird. It's got
mean,
to be the worst time to
obviously,
be a free agent.
yeah, there's always a third mystery team, but there's so many teams out there that just aren't participating in this free agency at all. So there's no rush for these other teams that are
Right.
actually looking to spend money, like the Mets. So JBJ could obviously still be a factor, and that'll be talked about as soon as Springer goes, if he goes somewhere else. Same thing with Pilar. And like you could do that, but keep in mind if you get those guys, that's a fourth outfielder, and Nimmo is starting at center, which
Right.
I am wrapping my head around that more and more, and I'm fine with that more and more. I never thought of him to be a bad defensive center fielder. Little subpar, yeah. I don't know. What do you think about Conforto in center?
Oh, that's weird. Didn't they try that?
He looks good out there, though, I feel.
He can run.
It's not
I don't
ideal
know.
defensively,
No,
right?
none
It's
of it's
not.
ideal. This is why. Okay, so here's the other name that I not Pilar either. And I think this person gives you a little bit more versatility, and I think it would be a really smart move for the Mets if they looked at him if George Springer doesn't work out. Albert Almora Jr. He could play any outfield position. He could play second base. He could play third base. I think anybody who gives you the depth like that, a utility guy who you can move anywhere you want on any given notice, will play any position for you. Sign me up.
I like that as well. I'm going to one up you there in that category, in
Go
my
ahead.
opinion. Kike.
Kike. I was just going to say it too. Yeah.
Dude, I honestly, I've been leaning more and more towards him as the fourth guy. He's got some pop, man. And him coming off the bench as a fourth outfielder, and I would have no problem with him starting center field 2 to 3 games a week. I really don't have an issue with that. And then, he can cover just like Almora can with going back into the infield and playing some infield positions.
Yep.
And he is tried and tested in the playoffs.
Playoff guy. Yeah.
Dude, he has come up so big for the Dodgers. And they don't seem to be he seems like such an LA guy, and there's been not much interest, it seems.
I think they were all in on the LeMahieu contract, and because I think they felt like they weren't going to get Justin Turner back, so they wanted to fill Justin Turner with DJ LeMahieu. LeMahieu had no intentions to leave the Bronx. He signs for a little bit cheaper. He gets his $90 million. That's where he wanted to get. He gets his 6 years, little cheaper on the average. I think now that LeMahieu's off the market, the Dodgers probably turn back to Justin Turner and Albert Almora Jr. Or Kike Hernandez.
JT wants some.
He wants
money.
Like 4 or 5 years. Yeah,
I'm not sure if he's going to get that
thing.
Anywhere.
He's not going to get the years with those knees. I'll tell you that.
But he is. I don't want to. I mean, he's borderline top 5 hitter in the game.
Really?
I think he's that good. But he can't he's not. I mean,
can't move.
He can't move. But he's pretty smooth over at third base.
Man, why did
would you entertain that him coming back?
No, I wouldn't. No.
Really?
No, I wouldn't. I love him to death.
I love him.
He's not. Don't you want to have some flexibility after this year?
Yeah.
We've talked about that a little bit too.
But I don't think he's going to get anything as to maybe 3 years, and then
on everybody. The Blue Jays want Bauer. The Blue Jays want Springer. The Blue Jays want
that's good though.
Justin Turner. I know. But I think. All right. So here's my golden scenario. I think if Bauer signs with Toronto, then they're obviously out with George Springer, right? That kind of leaves George Springer to the Mets as his only realistic option at this point. So I think you could then get him for around 20 to 23 million a year. That still leaves you below the luxury tax this season. That still gives you some flexibility to sign some more people. Even if you're a little bit over this year on the luxury tax, it's not the end of the world. I do think there's a possibility of the Mets trading someone like Steven Matz or someone like Jeurys Familia, and just trying to offload some of that money. You would have to. It would be a weird trade. They'd have to be kind of creative with it, but it would probably be like just as an example.
To be stealing.
It would be like Jeurys Familia and like one of our prospects.
It would, yeah.
For. Like a no-name prospect.
For no one.
So you're just kind of offloading some money. Yeah. I think it's possible that they do that, especially if it's like one of the Brody Van Wagenen picks that they seem to like not be in love with at this point. I think that gives you the flexibility to sign George Springer and bring in another left-handed relief pitcher like we kind of talked about. My biggest question mark, because I am confident that they will sign Lindor. I'm confident that they'll extend Lindor. I don't want to say sign anymore because he's on the Mets. I'm confident that they will extend Michael Conforto.
When?
Where I don't know this year or next year. I don't think it matters. I think it gets done. My biggest question mark with this team. I think there's two of them. But the biggest one has got to be, what the hell do you do with Robinson Cano's contract? How do you get rid of that?
You can't. Well, you got to hope he
He
fails another
retires.
test. He ain't gonna retire. He's got
Tests,
20. What he's got?
retire.
29 million coming to him next year. He's not gonna
Kadire,
retire.
I think it's 24 million. What do you do with that? That's going to
He's coming
handcuff you.
back.
Yeah,
He's coming
next
back.
year
Yeah.
he's coming back. He's on the books, unless he fails another test. The other question mark I would say, and I think this one will kind of fill itself out, would be you have two starting first basemen. So figure that out. And I think that's just got to be pray for the National League to get a full-time DH.
Pray for the DH, right? Which I'm hopeful. I mean, it's insane though that Manfred has let teams go all
Yeah, but
off
you know
season.
why. You know why. It's a bargaining chip.
It's gonna happen regardless because I believe the
CBA is up.
yeah, that's up at the end of this year, so it's gonna happen, and he's just holding it on as his last. Yeah, so I don't think we'll have to worry about that in the future, which is good. So long term, you could have both of those guys, which I love both of them, which is great. You just hope for it this year. The more I think about it, in terms of extensions too, the more I want them to throw something out there to Thor.
Yeah, you could probably get him for relatively cheap if you did it.
Just
soon.
be like, yeah, and nothing crazy, and nothing in terms of a long amount of years or a ton of money.
Yeah, just
maybe
a
couple extra years, and something that sets him up for his future, regardless of what happens, and something that is a nice deal for us.
Teams try to avoid arbitration. They don't like doing it. You saw, I think the Mets avoided arbitration with 12 out of 13 players. I think the only one that they didn't avoid arbitration with was J.D. Davis. And they're arguing over 2.1 million or 2.375, something like that. So it's that's small compared to some other settlements that we've seen in the past. But I think what you'll try to see in the future with this, the new ownership and the new front office, is locking up guys like that, so they don't have to go to arbitration. Something like what we've seen down in Atlanta with locking up Albies and Acuna. Those guys signed their, I don't know, it was like a 10-year extension, and they're avoiding arbitration just from signing those extensions like that. It's good for the team, and it's good for the player. They're getting guaranteed money. They don't have to go to arbitration meetings and sit through lawyers and things like that. So I think it's good for everybody. I think that's something that you'll probably see this team start doing in the near future. They just got to get the right guys to do it with.
It's a good strategy for the Braves because those guys also will still be young enough to net a big contract if they continue to play the way they do and stay healthy. So it's good for them, and it's great for the Braves because the Braves, year after year, have continued to just add one or two big like guys that are helpful onto their team every year, and they're looking at guys again this year, and they are, I feel like, always that third mystery team in the sweepstakes for someone.
They're going to be there.
Yeah, and they're going to add a pitcher. That's good. They are going to probably do that, right? So
I wonder if has Cole Hamels, have you heard anything about him? Is he?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would imagine he signs somewhere, but those, that's another one of those guys that could be just a last minute thing.
Yeah.
But the Braves, they do need someone with their injuries, right? So
yeah. They last year, remember, they signed Felix and they signed Cole Hamels.
I wonder if they are in the running for Bauer. That makes me wonder. I feel like they could be, right? Because they don't have much guaranteed money at all, just because of what you said with their strategies.
Yeah.
That or a catcher.
Yeah, I was going to say Real Muto would fit really good down there. But then what do you do with Darno?
Darno.
I know.
Yeah, he's been good. I forgot about him.
Yeah. I don't
Why'd
want to
you
talk
bring
about
him up?
that. I don't want to talk about that. You brought it up. Oh man, it was never going to work out here.
Yeah, we're not patient enough.
No, and he wasn't good enough. Let's be
And
honest. Good,
yeah,
who
he
can
took
throw the
his
ball to
time.
second base. Yeah,
He took his time. But defensively also, like, he's a hitter. He's a hitter. He's a hitting catcher. That's what he is.
yep.
He can frame, but in terms of throwing guys out, yeah. And you know, we we
I'm
do need
excited for
guys like that.
McCann. I'm excited for McCann. We've seen Wilson Ramos back there the last few years, and
People forget about that contract. Like, dude, people love complaining. But I gotta say, even if we just stand by and get Justin Wilson and a fourth out, say we get Justin Wilson and Kike Hernandez, and that's it. I am over the moon.
yeah,
Because there's gonna be also, remember last year, the first month of spring training, there's going to be so many arms out there in terms of both relievers and starters that
happens
are
every year.
just, have their own camps and are just throwing, waiting to get signed, and injuries happen. And we're going to know where we stand with a little more with these guys, even if we have Mats on the team. We're going to know in spring training how he's looking and if he's going to be reliable to be a 5 guy. We're going to know about David Peterson a little bit more. And just like every other team, come March, we're going to see, hey, do we need to sign like one of these other starters that are going to be
It'll
available?
be interesting to see how the rotation fills out before Syndergaard gets back. Honestly, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Syndergaard does get back too. I'm just thinking the beginning of the year. You would think DeGrom, Carrasco, Stroman.
Peterson.
It's got to be Peterson, and then Mats is your 5 right now, right? I wouldn't mess with Lugo there. I really wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either, but I'm not opposed to an opener. And if Mats is the opener, then that's what it is. And if that's what we need to tell him, so he's like, yo, we need to throw strikes and we need a couple innings out of you. Yeah, and that's it. And especially if Noah comes back, him and Mats and Noah split in 5
You just
because
double it
Noah's
up.
Noah's going to be on an innings limit. So that'd be pretty awesome, honestly. I do like the idea of an opener for a 5. You've seen it happen more and more in years past, and it seems to work. So that's something that I would like a lot, especially
if it's done the right way.
That 5, that 5th day could be one of our stronger days to win a game, up there with the Grom, obviously, but it could be one of our stronger days if you have Mats throwing 2 or 3 innings and he's looking all right, like that we've seen Mats in the past, and you have Noah come in for a couple innings, and then you have, because Lugo he's a reliever, but he has serious restrictions on when he can again throw. You have Lugo
2 or 3 innings,
and
I don't hate that.
And then you're in the 7th already.
Well, if you're going to keep Lugo on that, like he pitches one day, he has 2 days rest. You might as well throw him for 2 or 3 innings.
2 or 3 innings, yeah, 2 or 3 innings each of them, and you're getting yourselves into the 7th, 8th inning.
9 innings right there.
Yeah. So
I don't hate that. It's
yeah, I'm not opposed to that at all. I actually think that's how that should go, especially if the rest of our bullpen is thrown the way it does. Then we just save those other guys for days 1 through 4.
Yeah, you got to get more length out of Peterson too. I feel like he's like a 5-inning guy right now. You just got to kind of stretch him out. Can't rely on DeGrom to go 8, 9 innings every time he's out there.
No.
There's going to be games where he pitches, 5 or 6 innings and the pitch counts up. That's normal. But Peterson's got to get us a little bit more length, I think. Carrasco, it'll be fun to see how he works with McCann. I know McCann reached out to him as soon as the trade happened. It'd be interesting to see how all these guys work with McCann. He's really good back there. He's a good framer, good pitch caller. Hopefully they don't micromanage the game and call pitches from the dugout. I can't stand that. I feel like McCann's one of those catchers who he really knows the game, and he knows what the hitter's thinking, and he can kind of work around that.
Have we done
And
that though in the last 10 years?
I feel like when Darno was catching, back to Travis Darno, I
I
feel like
think
they
they
used to
did.
manage the shit out of
I
him.
think they did. Yeah, which probably detrimental to everyone involved.
Everybody.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that in general either.
No,
Even
let him play. Let him play.
Yeah, yeah, agree.
That's all I got. I got
That's
nothing
it.
else.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, yeah, I'm fine with this being a short one. There's not much going on. Maybe we hop on halfway through the week because we got something crazy happening.
Yeah, something might happen. You never know. You never know.
Either way, we got the countdown begins to spring training. Yeah, we got less
Oh
than a
yeah.
month now.
I think it's 30 days.
Is it 30 exactly?
29 or 30, something like that.
And so far, no
We're right
restrictions
there.
on spring training, no restrictions on the regular season. So I'm
We
hopeful.
might have to go when we're down there. We might have to go do a road trip.
We could take a road trip one day.
Road trip.
Have you ever been down there, like to
St.
see
Lucie?
any of the minor leagues? So I went to.
Oh yeah, you sent me the video. He like walked onto the field.
Yeah. Like everything's open. When you go to a minor league field, like I could see them working out before the game. They just like had doors wide open, and I was just walking the field.
Florida's a crazy place, man.
But I remember seeing a certain first baseman down there, and I was just like, and he hit a moonshot that I went and got, and I just walked and got the ball because no one else was there. I don't know what I did with the ball, but it was Pete Alonso.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He's also come so far defensively because I was just
Did you see his Instagram post? He like took the picture of the glove and he was like, "This is the glove I'm gonna win a Gold Glove with. This is the one." He's like willing it into existence. Like easy Pete. You know when LeVar Ball's like, "My boy's going second overall to the Los Angeles Lakers," and then like I feel like Magic Johnson was like, "Fuck, I have to pick him."
Oh
like,
yeah, I guess so.
Pete Alonso is LeVar Ball.
I could see it happen. Listen, crazier things have happened. He is getting so much better defensively. Remember in the first year he used to run pretty much and try to cover second base in terms of ground balls, and then no one would be there to cover first. But he is getting way better in terms
the middle of the hole. You mean? Yeah.
It's like that's a second baseman's ball.
You know what drives me nuts with him? I have zero confidence with him doing this. Is throwing the ball to the pitcher. Like he can underhand it, but if he's got to whip it over there when a pitcher's covering first base, it's always behind him.
That's what he's working on.
I'm always reaching back and then, like stepping his leg out, trying to get the bag. I'm like, oh my god, this is how you get a.
That's what he's working on, man. He's working on it.
Well, you know, he should work on making some more contact this year too, because last year was hard to watch.
That's all right. I'm confident in him. He'll be good. Sophomore slump.
It was a low blow. I shouldn't have done that.
That was tough. He didn't mean that, Pete.
Sorry, Pete. We love you.
Nah.
Still the home run derby champ, reigning champ. People don't forget.
Yeah. Is he the only 2-year champ? Someone's won it twice in a row, I'm sure.
Someone has won it twice in a row.
That'd be cool if he was the longest reigning champ.
Yeah. Maybe he wins this year. You never know.
We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I got. This is episode 3 of LFGM. Put it in the books.